I have the big boy table.
He drinks as well,
They're all like bunched together and you have.
There's something to read on that.
It's. Yeah. Hysterical. I'm- no. It looks like it's the internet connection that I'm seeing. It's that blue cord.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
So, yeah, okay, just.
Okay, 7:05. Let's call this meeting order. And. Next slide.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Jeannie Benjamin, Wendy Reed,
Here.
Kathy Macho,
Here.
Jamie Melky,
Here.
and Tom Graham.
Okay.
We do have a quorum.
Any citizen comment, maybe not tonight? I'm gonna drag this out as long as we can, you know. Approval of agenda, may I have a motion?
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Any comments?
Kathy Macho,
Yes.
Wendy Reed,
Yes.
Jeannie Benjamin,
Yes.
Tom Graham,
Yes.
Jamie Melky.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Go to the consent agenda. Do I have any comment?
I'd like to move items C, D, and E into discussion items. I'll move to approve the consent agenda items A and B.
Second.
Tom Graham,
Which, we have two motions, so
No,
we got one to approve the amended agenda after pulling items C, D, and E.
okay, yes.
Jeannie Benjamin,
yes.
Wendy Reed,
Yes.
Kathy Macho,
Yes.
Jamie Melky.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, we can, Mr. Mayor, we can take item 3C first. That's pleasure. Then we can go on and discuss it.
You can explain that one, right?
Yeah, so pretty basically stated is the NPPA purchases power for the city. They forecast how much power we'll need for the upcoming years. So ahead of time, we purchase capacity. And basically what this memo is saying here is that we have anticipate to have more capacity than needed for the planning year 26-27. So they want to sell that excess capacity that we bought back on the market. So this is asking, would give NPPA permission to sell excess capacity that they think we won't need for that year. So excess electricity. So that they anticipate we can make up to approximately $135,000 of selling our excess capacity.
We sold excess other years.
Not since I've been here, but may have happened prior.
I'm wondering how this affects the summer season. We're not selling energy in the summer, are we?
No, this is anticipated forecasting credits. So what's gonna happen here is they take into the summer. The summer's load and the capacity for summer. And they anticipate that we have enough to cover that. So this is already, so it's not like we have this energy coming to us yet. We're expected to have that energy delivered to us. So we're gonna sell those credits to whoever else wants that capacity.
So we're still going ahead with the $8 million upgrade to the electric, even though we have more electric than we need. But it's the summer season that's driving.
The substation and the amount of electricity we use are two different things. The substation is about, once the electricity comes to our system, ensuring we can deliver that electricity that comes into our system efficiently and effectively to our customers. This is how much, the forecasting of how much energy we're purchasing from other places downstate or out of state, and before it even comes to us. So those are two different things. So if there's someone would like, we would need a motion to approve the attached power purchase commitment authorization directing the MPPA to sell the excess capacity for 26-27 planning year.
I would make that motion.
I'll second.
Alan Graham,
Yes,
Kathy Macho,
Yes,
Jamie Milky,
Yes.
Wendy Reed,
Yes.
Jeannie Benjamin.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, the second 3D, this item is, last council meeting, Councilmember Reed noted, quotes from CSI for the poles that we ordered for the substation yard lighting did not match what the engineer had broken down. And that is because, the company that sent him the quotes, they sent him a quote for 4 poles, and then he did the math himself to come down to what 2 poles would be. And he came down to a price of $8,012. So we asked the company to redo a bid and the quote, and they said the real cost would be $7,954. So that is what the cost is for 2 poles for the substation yard lighting. And that was the issue last time, was the quote that we had was for 4 poles when we had requested 2 poles.
and we just needed to approve that. The amount was accurate that was on there, but it wasn't clear, if I
So,
remember
so it
right.
wasn't clear to the engineer, it wasn't clear to us,
Okay,
how they did a breakdown. So what
Got it.
the maths, the engineer's math was about $60, $70 higher than what the actual cost was.
So now I'm wondering why in the first quote, he gave us 2 lights. For a total of 8 fixtures, 2 different kinds, 4 of each. In this quote, he's giving us 1 light, 8 total. And I'm wondering why he's changed it.
Let's see the 8 on the original quote here. Let's see. 8 right here as well, for the same price. The Leotech, there's 8, quantity of 8. So that's different than the number of poles. So those,
Well, he gave us a quote for 4 at $638 and a quote for 4 at $777. And the specs for both of them are different. So now he's giving us 1 quote for 8 at $638.
we had already given that quote. Right here. I'm not quite sure. So this is the revised quote right here. You got 8 at 638. That's the same as. Sorry, that's the same as. The 8 at 638 in the previous.
Is there more than one?
So I'm not, I guess I'm not. Quite sure where you're seeing the difference there.
Well, the quote he gave us last time, quote number 20332. He has four at $638 and they're 163 watts. And then he has four at $777 and they are 154 watts. And they also have a dimming driver on them. So I don't, now he's changed it to all four or all eight are the 638 light.
Well, this is, I mean, what you have in front of you in this email is the quote and the cost breakdown. So if you want me to go back and figure out those details, which I'm still not sure about, but I think the quantities are the same. The only thing that's really been reduced is the quantity, the 2 poles instead of the 4 poles. The Leotech material is the same at 8 for $638.
And then we have free freight on this, $3,000 in free freight from California if we buy over $5,000. But there's no freight on the poles, which look like they ship from Lansing and they're 29 feet long.
So what's the question?
There's nothing in freight terms on the quote for the poles. And it's odd that we have to pay $3,000 in freight for the light fixtures, but we're not paying any freight for the poles.
So if they haven't quoted us for freight, then I'm guessing we don't have to pay for
This
freight.
is what we're paying for the material, so that's not
I
part
guess
of it.
that's what I'm thinking, maybe, I mean, if he didn't,
It says,
if it's not included in the bid, then I would say we don't need to.
We aren't paying 3,000 in freight. It says anything over $3,000 ships free,
Right, I see that, but
and we're not getting
that
charged.
that is only on the light. It's not on the poles.
Right, we're not getting charged freight for either of them.
They don't actually say that on the pole quote.
well,
Doesn't
Just
say
as
if they
in-
can't charge us.
the only, like I said, the only difference in the quotes between last time and this time is that the math that our engineer did to get to 2 poles was off by about $70. Last time there was no charge for the freight. And if it wasn't clear that there was no charge on one versus other, then it wasn't clear, but they're not charging for it either way. So I think what we're really looking at here, if we put aside everything else, is that the quote, the revised quote they gave us based on 2 poles, not based on our engineer's math, but based on the company's math, is $70 lower. And the exact cost and breakdown now for 2 poles as opposed to 4. There's no difference in the cost of the freight.
And this might be because we were buying 4. The 4 poles were $1,176. The 2 poles are $1,425 each. And that might be because we're buying 2 instead of 4.
It's possible.
That's all I have.
On the quote, it does say that the freight's included, the quote for the poles.
No, it says that on the lights.
It's on the poles, on the bottom line there, it says line notes includes anchor bolts, freight, galvanized finish, and steel base order.
I have it.
I move to approve the bid for the CSI,
I second.
BIS.
Kathy Macho,
Yes,
Katie Benjamin,
Yes.
Lenny Reed,
Yes.
Tom Graham,
Yes,
David Melky,
Yes,
motion carried.
All right, item 3E is Garden Club contribution request for 2026. The Garden Club maintains approximately over a dozen gardens on city property. For several years, the city has contributed to the Garden Club's activities and efforts because they are club gardens on city property. So they're asking again this year for a contribution of $3,500, which is typically allocated from the community promotion line, the general fund. The past years, how much we've donated have ranged from 2,000 to the last 2 years, $3,500. It's a council decision, of course, because it's a contribution. Typically, you know, if you didn't have the garden club doing this, you would probably ask yourselves, do we want to see gardens on city property? And if we did so, how much would it cost for staff to do it versus contracting it out, and et cetera. So if the answer is yes, you want to see gardens on city property to the same extent you see them now, then it's much cheaper just to contribute, you know, $3,500 or whatever the amount is to the garden club as opposed to having our DPW guys or getting a flower company to do it for us. But, and that's mostly because the garden club is all volunteers, so.
I really only want to pull this out to commend the garden club for doing such a great job on, I mean, it's $233 for 15 gardens, each garden at $11.65 per week in a 20-week summer. That's like Depression era wages. I mean, I feel like we're not giving them enough money. We should be funding their end of season banquet.
That's great, yeah.
That's really well.
It's certainly a darn good group.
I would entertain a motion to contribute $3,500 to the garden club for the 2026 year.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Tom Graham,
Yes,
Jamie Melky.
yes.
Kathy Macho,
Yes,
Money Reeve,
Yes.
Judy Benjamin.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Mr. Mayor, we'll move on to the discussion items. The first one is renovation plan for the Blackbird Museum, and this is something that has been on our capital improvements plan for a while, and it's actually been on the city's radar for many years. Back in the mid-2000s, the museum, Blackbird Museum Historical Society, I don't know their exact name, but they have been meeting regularly, and they've had plans to renovate Blackbird, and it's been a long-term goal of them. And then they dissolved probably, I don't know, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago. Our museum employee retired three or 4 years ago. The museum that we do have, it was deeded to the city in the 1960s, and we're obligated to operate it as a museum. So given that fact, what we had decided to do was to contract with the Historical Society, because they're in the business of museums, to manage and operate our museum for us. And throughout that, we discussed at those early stages that we have plans for the Blackbird Museum, and we would like their help in helping, you know, to reconfigure that space to make it a better museum space, and more modern and up to date, and to deliver the experience that people deserve when they visit that space. We've also worked, and they have worked on collaborating more with the tribe on special displays and projects, and I think that's only gonna increase, and it's important because that Blackbird Museum holds a special place for the tribal members and tribal history, as well as the city's history. So I'll pass it over to Kristen a little bit here just to give an overview, but really the goal is, this is first on agenda because it is part of our CIP and it is part of the proposed budget for 2026. So I want council to have better understanding of the project before you decide whether or not to approve it as part of the budget for next year. Kristen? No.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Baylog. I'm the Executive Director of the Harbor Springs Area Historical Society. And I'm accompanied by my coworker, Teddy Champ, who is the Assistant Director. So I'd like to say thank you to council for those of you who came and went through the Blackbird Museum to learn a little bit more about the building itself and to tour the museum. I appreciate your time and willingness to see the space firsthand. You saw the building's charm and significance, and you also saw the limitations of the current exhibits. The Blackbird Museum is a city-owned historic asset housed in one of the oldest standing buildings in Harbor Springs. It is a place where we tell an essential story, the story of Andrew J. Blackbird, his family, and Hadawa leadership in this region. It is also a site that welcomes residents, school groups, and visitors who want to understand our community more fully. But the exhibits inside have not had a major update since the early 1990s. In museum standards, exhibits are typically renewed 10 to 15 years to keep pace with scholarship, visitor learning needs, and preservation best practices. We are well beyond that limit, and we are at the History Museum as well, which is why we just had a capital campaign. Our proposal is to redevelop the permanent exhibits in this 2-room, 500-square-foot museum in a way that is historically grounded, culturally respectful, and designed for today's visitors. We will be doing that in active partnership with the Little Traverse Bay Band of Hadawa Indians, and with the guidance that ensures this is not only accurate, but shared in the right voice and context. The project scope is straightforward: interpretive planning and design, fabrication of new secure cases and exhibit elements, installation and improvements that strengthen accessibility while protecting the historic building. The full project is $120,000, which includes a 20% contingency to account for the realities of working in a historic structure and staying responsible with taxpayer dollars. Tonight, I'm asking the city to invest $100,000 toward this work. And I want to be clear why the city investment matters here and how grateful we are for council's prior support of this direction. Your investment anchors this project and helps us leverage charitable contributions to support this asset, because the city may not be able to give the tax deductible gift directly to a city, or because our donors may not be able to give directly and get the 501c3 advantage. It's likely that we perhaps will be accepting donations on behalf of the city also, and we are willing to assist with that fundraising. We fully expect that once the city's commitment is in place and the community sees that shared effort, donors will feel confident stepping forward alongside to help us complete this work. In terms of timing, if council supports this request, we are ready to move forward. We would solicit bids right away, select a contractor early in 2026, and complete design, fabrication, and installation over the course of the year, with a new exhibit opening by year's end. You may notice there's a typo right there, proposal due date. That should read 2026, or is it January 19th? I know there's a typo in there, but that date should read
2026.
It's
2026.
okay.
Same sequence, just corrected here. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Nothing else changes in that timeline. So tonight, the decision in front of you is, do we bring the city asset up to the professional, respectful standard its story deserves, and ensure that it stands alongside the other corridor sites as a point of pride for the whole community? We believe this project will do that. It will significantly deepen public understanding of Hadawa and Native American history in Harbor Springs and the Little Traverse region. And it will do so in partnership with the Little Traverse Bay bands, so the story is shared accurately and respectfully. It will improve interpretation, increase educational value, strengthen preservation of artifacts, and make the museum more accessible and engaging for every visitor who walks through the door. So this evening, I'm asking for your consideration on 2 items. First is the approval of the investment of $100,000 toward the Blackbird Museum exhibit redevelopment, and I see that you separated the other, which is our management agreement. Talk about that next. So thank you again, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
And just a reminder, for council members who've been here a while and those who are newer, the city dissolved this Blackbird Museum Fund the other year, which we had had for decades. We rolled that fund into the general fund. That Blackbird Museum Fund was allocated throughout the years, probably $40,000 to $50,000 a year for museum operations. Any excess money was intended to be saved for future capital expenditures at the museum. But we rolled that money back into the general fund, so it's there, and the intent was always to use that money as a capital expenditure for the museum.
I don't recall exactly, didn't we have an amount that we actually transferred?
125,000.
It was 125.
Something like that, which was,
That's what I'm thinking I remember.
at one point, the city took $125,000 from the Blackbird Fund to use for balancing our budget. I think that was in 2020 or 2021, and then that was $125,000 that was meant to go back into the.
That sounds familiar to me. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else got any comments on the proposal?
Is there a restroom in that building?
Yes, there is, and it is ADA.
You're not gonna be doing any renovations to the building, this is all exhibits?
This is all based on exhibits. I do believe that it would benefit if we had the city, maybe Lucas or his group come in. The only thing I can assure you is there's some small critters living below in crawl space. Other than that, we haven't experienced leaks in the roof or any windows or any structural changes that need to be made. But I think that inspection probably would be a great idea for the city to do before they move forward with this.
So the bathroom is open to the public.
Yes.
I didn't realize that.
So, yeah, the motion would be to approve it, to include it in the budget for 2026. Of course, you're not gonna approve the budget finally until until December 15th is the deadline for us to approve the budget. However, if you do approve it, it at least gets the ball rolling for them to go out to bid. And as is with our purchase policy, procurement policy, even if, we go out to bid, there's still an opportunity for council to say, you know what, we don't want to do their projects or can't do the project. However, you should be pretty sure that you want to do the project before you approve it. But just because you approve it tonight doesn't mean you absolutely have to approve it when it comes back to you. So I just want to make that clear. The bids may come back higher or lower. I mean, we don't know that yet.
Do you want to do public comment?
Anybody want to comment on our proposal on the audit? Yes, Garrett.
Question, I love the history, obviously, if you don't spend the total allotment, what do you do with those funds? And do you have any rough idea or breakdown that got you to that number? I'm assuming you did something, even though you're saying you don't have bids now, but you didn't just make it up, right?
Correct. Good questions. So it's my understanding that once we put the RFP out and we receive bids, we'll bring those bids back to city council with a recommendation. And we would only be drawing the monies that are needed. So if the budget approval is for 100,000, but we're able to accomplish this in a lower number due to community donations or what have just, savings overall, we certainly aren't looking to spend the exact amount of 100,000. That's just the number that we'd like to go out for bid. And then second, we did get bids in 2022 when we first took over management, and we came to a city council meeting and we talked about a range. I think it was 50,000 up to 300,000, and there were 3 courses of improvements that could be done. And so we're coming back now just under that half point, large in part because we've been working closely with the Little Traverse Bay Band, and we know that the information and working with them, the content development, and some of our community leaders in that governance can help us, and that has drastically helped us lower that number. Patty, do you have anything to add to that? We have also been meeting with exhibit designers So technically, we have seen some quotes, but that was prior to us giving them a budget, so we put them all on pause. And have wanted to come here tonight and go back to them with any refinements.
Yeah, hi, I'm Teddy Tamlin, Assistant Director of the Historical Society. Yeah, so this $100,000 budget is about $200 a square foot, which, as Kristen said, is kind of below the half mark of these different budgets that we received. And the reason it's below that half mark is the content that will be in the exhibits. So that'll include a lot of information panels, artifact displays, and then some AV technology that will allow us to rotate in different sources as we continue to do more archival work in the Blackbird archive. So over time, instead of having just static displays, we can bring in new materials and present them in new ways, sort of over the lifetime of the exhibit. So that there's a lot more, like if you go to the Shea House that we have in the historical corridor, there's a lot more that you can do in terms of interactives that you can see there that increase the price quite a bit. But in terms of the type of history that we want to present and the content that we want to display, that's sort of the appropriate range that we feel is necessary. And in receiving feedback from the tribe, they feel that too. Thanks.
Kristen, I have one follow-up question. So you're requesting 100,000, not 120,000? Because I put 120,000 in my memo.
I know,
Negotiate it out.
I would appreciate the contingency. We're here for feedback, so 100,000 is what we'd like to go to out for bid. And whether or not we need that contingency, we can learn that when we get the bids back.
I would be more comfortable including a contingency in there, because even if it comes back at $100,000, there's still gonna be a contingency in case they find stuff in the museum. So I would put that as a max. And then if we get donations, then we get lower bids, that's great.
We're just not at all focused on the crawl space or the floor structure. We're really focused on exhibits and cosmetics. So the contingency for us, it feels a little more comfortable in the range for that. But we will learn more on inspection.
But we'll have to approve the budget before,
And I think we
Before
included
the
120 in the
RFPs.
budget.
huh?
We included 120 in the budget.
Correct.
So, yes, we passed the budget first and then the bid will come back and then you'll select the contractor.
Okay.
At that range. We do have a hand raised, Taylor DeWicki.
Thank you. So this total budget would be for exhibit design.
It's fabrication, design. In the packet, it lists the breakdown. Right there, budget allocation.
Mm-hmm.
So design is just a phase of the overall.
And so what would the new Blackbird Museum look like with this like new exhibit? It's more screens.
That's to be determined. That's why we would go out to bid and see what ideas that different exhibit designers bring to us.
Okay. I guess that was my only question. Thank you.
I think we envision it being somewhat primitive, but we'll be working closely with the tribe on the aesthetics of the museum.
Just for comparison, how much money did you spend in the Shea building on exhibits? It's a much bigger.
Well, I know, I wasn't sure if I was hoping you'd ask that or not. We have invested $675,000 in exhibits only inside the Shea House. However, there's a lot more AV and interactive and engineering that goes on in there because of its STEM commitment. So $100,000 is a very streamlined budget, as we learned in 2022 when we were presented with a $300,000 bid for that space. But that was, in that bid, took the drywall out and took it all the way back to the primitive building that it was and reworked it architecturally also. And that's just something in the years that we have been there, living in the space and again, working with the tribe. The value for us is more in that educational component and moving forward with the storytelling opportunity.
I'll make a motion made on that request.
Can I clarify something?
Sure can.
Can we? I think it's a great project and I'm not concerned about the dollar amount. I just would feel more comfortable maybe approving the RFP and then approving if we want to do this in 1 year or over the course of 2 years when we get to the budget, just because I think that there could be changes in the budget that could affect how much money we can play with.
So Pat's gonna do the project over the course of 2 years.
I mean, I'm not asking that, I'm just asking if today we should actually just be approving for them to go out to bid for the project and approving the dollar amount once we approve the final budget.
So Nick, that would entail doing it, if we do select a contractor and doing an amended budget at the start of the year, what are you more comfortable with from a accounting perspective of putting it now or waiting until January to?
I guess in my mind, I would approve. That's not a bad path, approve them to go out for RFP. Pass the budget in 2 weeks with 120,000 assumption if we don't get these back by then, which I highly doubt. And that if it comes back 250, yeah, let's amend the budget
Okay.
and split it over 2 years or come up with an alternate plan at that point.
That affect how Tom's motion was worded? I just want to
Well,
make sure.
the motion is, it said like include 120,000 in the 2026 annual budget, so if you want to change that wording up to more reflect something different.
I think at this point, the next motion would be if we had to amend it, then the motion would be to amend the budget line item for capital outlay in Blackbird to 200 or whatever the case may be. So I think at this point, maybe Tom, if you could amend your motion to say give direction to Historical Society to go out for RFPs, noting that we would budget 120,000 for 2026.
That's fine with me. I would get it done.
I'll second.
All right, Jeannie Benjamin,
Yes.
Wendy Reeve,
Yes.
Kathy Macho,
Yes,
Tom Graham,
Yes,
Jamie Melton.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, perfect. Then tagging along, this is item 4B, renewal of the Blackbird Museum Management Agreement with Harbor Springs Area Historical Society. And I separated these as 2 items because they really are 2 different things, even though they are related. We do have an agreement with the Historical Society to manage and operate our Blackbird Museum. Those agreements start from May 1st through April 30th. And what the Historical Society has requested is that we change that agreement timeframe from to January 1st to December 31st. Probably be better for us from a budgetary perspective. It makes things a little easier. The only thing in addition to this would be is our agreement with them ends expires in April 30th, 2026. So we'd also be extending that agreement from to December 31st. So it wouldn't, the amount that we'd be regularly contracting with is not changing at this point, but we're extending it to December 31st. And then if we want to renew going forward, it would be based on that fiscal year agreement. So, I should do anything to add.
Was what's recommended to us also by our auditors. It's created a little bit of a squirrely paper situation the last 2 years. And it would just be helpful for us to be on the fiscal with this. Because we make the contract and agreement in 1 year, but it's not paid until the following year. So.
And I've had the same conversation with ours. It's cleaner if we get everything on the same time frame.
do we pay that monthly?
No, twice a year.
Oh, twice.
So I'm just
okay. Oh.
requesting.
I get it.
Yeah, so I'm coming, I guess. Victor said it a little different, so to clarify how I'm understanding it. I'm coming to you now for the full year of 2026 and not asking and just with the same service fee that we had in 2025 and starting a new clean agreement in 2026.
I move that we renew the agreement through December 31st, 2026 at the current rate.
A second.
Okay, got a motion and a second.
Any discussion on the board?
Wendy Reeve,
Yes.
Jamie Milky.
Yes.
Tom Graham,
Yes.
Kathy Marshall,
Yes,
Jeannie Benjamin.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you all very much. That's exciting news for the Blackbird Museum and hopefully as we move forward, some of the questions asked were, will we be open during the renovations? And I think it's best that we can just to keep the process and keep everybody excited about the process. And we'll get back to you with quotes as soon as possible.
thanks.
Thank you, Kristen.
Item 4C is a zoning code update overview. The planning commission on November 13th recommended a new zoning, well, updated zoning code and ordinance, which would probably be ordinance 442. And we just passed the noise ordinance 441. So the planning commission approved it. They sent in a resolution you see attached to your packet. We have the draft minutes there. We have links to the zoning code. And there is a presentation that was put together and the planning commission designated Bob Buckner to give that presentation to council. Did note that there is a public hearing was requested by a resident to have zoning code. So typically the city council, legislative bodies do not have to hold a public hearing. That means the planning commissions are the ones that are tasked with holding public hearings for zoning ordinances. But there is something in the state law, the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, as a resident can request it. And so anticipation, also potentially wanting to hear the hearing of December 15th, I the notice out in advance. We got some pushback from some people saying that was improper. So I just let council decide on when you want to hold a public hearing. But that should be decided. There's no timeline given in the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, whether to hold a public hearing, but it must be held. So you do have to hold a public hearing at some point. So it's behooves you to schedule that as soon as possible. It doesn't have to be scheduled soon, but it should be scheduled as soon as possible because it'll make it easier. And then you have as many meetings as you want to contemplate the zoning code, discuss it. So I will pass it over to Bob if you want to come up to the spotlight. On board. 1 second.
Good?
We are good.
All right. Mayor Graham, council people, my name is Bob Buckner. I reside at 148 West Bay Street here in Harbor Springs. I'm a member of the Planning Commission. And as you know, the Planning Commission approved a draft of the zoning code update. This draft is 160 pages plus, and I am planning on covering every one of those pages. I do not intend to address every page. I'm going to try and keep this as brief as I possibly can, but make sure that you understand some of the changes that are being proposed in the current ordinance. My mission tonight is to provide a high-level overview of the most important issues and the most important changes. So I'd like to first start by addressing the question, how did we get here? What led us to this point? Well, throughout early 2025, the Planning Commission and the community objectively re-examined the existing zoning code in January and February. We wanted to try and understand not only what was wrong with the current zoning code, but what was right. We did not want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and we wanted to retain what's good about the current zoning code. But we did find that there were some significant deficiencies in the current code. Honestly, many of which surprised and alarmed members of the community. So the Planning Commission, along with input from the community, unanimously concluded that there was strong consensus to address these deficiencies via an update to the zoning code in 2025. And frankly, there was very little support to retain the current code as it is. So a brief overview on the update process. It was pretty intense. 5 town hall listening sessions in the winter, 10 community open houses, which were split 5 in the winter, 5 in the fall, an online community survey, which was conducted in the winter, 23 planning commission meetings between November 2024 and November 2025, so almost 2 meetings a month for that 1-year period. The meetings were extremely free-flowing, informal meetings. We invited full audience participation. Everybody had an opportunity to voice their opinion, express their concerns, and we solicited input from full-time residents, but also part-time residents, non-residents, and even a third-party planner that was retained by We Love Harbor Springs. Every word was reviewed by the full planning commission, and quite honestly, pretty heavily scrutinized by members of the community as well. We spent over 1,750 hours going over the code, and that's the community members, city staff, as well as the planning commission members. Next. So, what were our goals and objectives in updating the code? Obviously, we wanted to sync with the city's master plan goals and the future land use map. But importantly, we really wanted to try and improve the clarity and usability for residents, staff, and professionals. This was viewed as a huge shortcoming to the current code. We wanted to reduce the bureaucratic processes and costs for residents by making the code easier to use and more streamlined. We tried to provide more options and greater flexibility for property owners. We wanted to address potentially undesirable outcomes and liabilities that are implicit in the current code, and there are some in there. We wanted to anticipate the future needs of Harbor Springs residents, and we tried to address head-on the contentious issues that led to the repeal of the 2024 Code 439. We all know what some of those issues were: duplexes, triplexes, building heights, what can be done in certain districts. We tried to address that head-on in this particular version of the proposed ordinance. And I might mention that, as some of you may know, the Planning Commission is a 9-member commission. In 2025, 4 of those 9 members, almost half, were new to the Planning Commission, which means there's a lot of new blood in this ordinance. This is not a 439 retread. Planning Commission agreed on the following principle. We have strong preferences to preserve the rights of property owners in Harbor Springs, and we also wanted to simultaneously preserve the charm of Harbor Springs. So I've talked about deficiencies in the current zoning code, and I don't want to belabor them, but it's important for the community, I think, to understand that there really are some serious deficiencies in the code that is in play today. Number 1, the format. It's extremely confusing. If you haven't looked recently at the format, you should. It's almost impossible to navigate. Mobile homes are permitted in residential districts by special land use. Single unit detached dwellings are allowed in the mobile home park. That should not be the case. The mobile home park should be preserved for mobile homes. Shipping containers can be used as a construction material. This is today. Adult-oriented businesses are permitted by special land use in certain portions of the central business district today. No shoreline protection requirements are in place in the current code. There's really no hard limit for building height in the central business district. Rooftop elevators and stairway housings are not limited. There are no architectural standards for buildings downtown. Some modern businesses, some that perhaps were not even contemplated in 2005 when the code was originally drafted, such as group hubs and tasting rooms, are not permitted in the central business district today.
Some districts, but not all, have guest quarters by right. That's not equitable. If you're gonna have guest quarters, it should be the same approval process for all residential areas. Gas stations are currently permitted in this, in the CBD by special land use. And there is no up-to-date dark sky lighting standards for new development in Harbor Springs in the current code. So take a look at this. This is what the current format looks like. And this format, in fairness, has served the community well, but it is really, really difficult to navigate. Very few tables. These are the tables here. They really don't do much in the way of adding clarity. As a matter of fact, in many instances, they do exactly the opposite. The columns do not align, and key information, which is in this circle over here, is buried in an ocean of text. An ocean of text. So important information such as what are lot sizes allowed, what setbacks are required, it's buried in a sea of text. You can't find it. So we asked ourselves, is it acceptable if people cannot easily understand important regulations about their property? And our answer was a resounding no, that is not acceptable. So if we move to the next one, this is what the proposed format looks like today. It's clear, clean, and easy to understand. As you can see, very tabular oriented. The slide to the left is the dimensional requirements for the R1B neighborhood. And on that one table, you can address basically all of the dimensional requirements for R1B. Minimum lot size, setback requirements, frontage requirements, everything's on that table in one simple to use table. The table on the right addresses what uses are permitted in each district. So not only does it tell you whether or not you can do a single family unit in your district or whether you can do a duplex in your district, but it also tells you whether you can do it by right or whether you can do it by special land use permitting. So that really clarifies and simplifies the process. Some of you may recognize this as the current zoning code map. Currently, there are 17 different zoning districts in Harbor Springs. That's a lot for a small town. We're 1,200 people. 17 zoning districts. The Planning Commission, and by the way, we looked at other towns of comparable size and we found that 17 was kind of at the high end in terms of the number of zoning districts. So the Planning Commission believes that there was potential to simplify this zoning code map without significantly impacting the character or the charm of Harbor Springs. And what we came up with is the next map. This is what's proposed in the proposed zoning ordinance. And it is a reduction of 3 districts. So not a tremendous reduction, but it does simplify things. We're now down to 14 districts. What we did is eliminated 2 districts that probably in aggregate accounted for less than 20 households in the entire community. So we almost had a zoning district for every house in that district. Kind of silly. So we eliminated the transitional residential and the waterfront resort and moved those houses into appropriate districts that are adjacent to or approximate to those locations. The other thing that we did is we merged R1B and R1C. Now, the lot sizes in R1B and R1C are heterogeneous. What do I mean by that? They defy unique logical dimensional standards. If you drive down Summit Street today, on the north side of Summit Street is one zoning district. The south side of Summit Street is another zoning district. I would defy everyone in this room to tell me which one is which. Because the lot sizes are virtually the same in either zoning district. There are R1B dimensional lots in R1C, and there are R1C dimensional lots in R1B. It makes no sense whatsoever. So we decided that the best thing to do would be to collapse that one zoning district and make it a single lot, or a single zoning district. So we're now down to 14 zoning districts in Harbor Springs if the proposed ordinance is accepted. For those of you who have paid any attention to what we were doing all winter long and all summer long, you know that there are some high focus topics that were addressed. Probably the highest focus topic was density. The community voiced significant concern about unchecked growth. And we wanted to make sure that we did not simply allow growth to occur willy-nilly. The updated code would not result in an appreciable change in density. By that, I mean, whether you accept the ordinance as it exists today, or you accept the proposed ordinance, if you project out 10, 15, 20 years, the number of residents, the number of households in Harbor Springs will be about the same. There's just not that much difference between the runway for incremental growth in Harbor Springs, regardless of which ordinance is accepted. How can I say that? Well, number one, the districts and the minimum lot dimensions are very, very similar in the ordinance that is being proposed versus the current zoning. So therefore, that does not facilitate incremental growth. Most vacant land, as everyone knows, is in the current AR district. And the planning commission decided to keep dimensions in the AR district quite large. 100-foot minimum lot width, 10,000 square feet minimum lot area. And as we all know, large lot sizes equals limited growth. So that is basically where there is, if there's any growth opportunity, that's where it's at. And it's not going to be any different in the proposed ordinance than it is in the current ordinance. Above and beyond all that, but frankly, there is limited potential for growth in Harbor Springs because there are just not a lot of developable lots in Harbor Springs in any of the other districts, R1A, R1B, whatever. And there were some community members that expressed concern about the potential to create incremental lots by combining adjacent incremental lots and then splitting them. Well, we looked at that pretty hard. And in order for that to happen, all kinds of crazy things would have to fall into place. Including you had to have adjacent lots, the housing placement on those lots had to be perfect so you could split them. The concern about birthing an incremental lot is just not justified. Okay, so as you can see from this table, I'm not going to go through this because I know this is a lengthy presentation. I'm not going to go through this in detail, but what I'm trying to show on this table is, okay, here's your 14 zoning districts that are being proposed. And on the right is our objective assessment as to whether or not there have been significant changes to the dimensions of the lot sizes in those zoning districts. And you can see pretty consistently, no significant change, no significant change, no significant change. The only one that is different to a modest extent is R1B, which is the third one down. And that's because it combines R1B and R1C. So there are some modest changes to lot dimensions there, but nothing that is really very significant. So the next high focus topic I'd like to discuss is multifamily options. This is an easy one. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this. Very simply, community voiced concerns about duplexes and where they can be located. I can't say it any more simply than this. Duplexes are not expanded into additional districts in our proposed zoning ordinance. So basically, duplexes in our proposed ordinance are only permitted in the same districts as they are today. No change. No change. And the same can be said for triplexes. So for those of you who are concerned about duplexes and where they can be located, rest assured it isn't going to change. Next, I'd like to talk about accessory dwelling units. The Planning Commission loves accessory dwelling units because they're a great solution for multi-generational households. If you're a family and you've got an aging mother or father and you want to keep an eye on them and you want to develop an accessory dwelling unit over the garage or something like that, this is a great opportunity to do that. Really, in terms of accessory dwelling unit development in Harbor Springs, it's a low volume. There's an average of about 1.5 built per year, and that's under the current code. Now, one thing about the accessory dwelling units that was a bit of a problem for the Planning Commission was that in certain districts, you could develop accessory dwelling units by right. But in other residential districts, it was special land use. We did not see the equitability there at all in that. Why should people who reside in specifically R1A and R1E be able to develop accessory dwelling units because they want to by right? But in all of the other residential districts, if you want to develop an accessory dwelling unit, you have to have special land use approved. So we said the best thing to do is let's put everybody on a level playing field. We actually made it a little bit more difficult to develop accessory dwelling units by insisting that every district that can have accessory dwelling units has to go for special land use approval. The other thing that we did is we removed a couple of regulations that are actually probably looking back kind of silly. And again, these restrictions here did not apply to R1A and R1E. So again, we're trying to put everybody on a level playing field. But if you do not reside in R1A or R1E and you want to develop a accessory dwelling unit, the restrictions include you can only have family and friends stay there. You can only stay there for 21 consecutive days. And then your guests have to go away for 30 days before they can come back. That just doesn't make a lot of sense, at least to me and the planning commission. So we basically eliminated those for every zoning district, and now accessory dwelling units for each zoning district can be developed using special land use, and there are no regulations restricting the tenure or length of stay. Next, we're going to talk about plan development. So the Planning Commission endorses plan developments. Plan developments allow a property owner to bring forward a really clever, creative, innovative idea that would not be possible under the standard zoning ordinance. Now consider this, if you do not have a plan development provision in the ordinance, and somebody comes up with a cool idea, it can't even be considered because there's no provision for it to be considered. That is exactly what plan development language is designed to address. And plan developments are not to be feared. They're common in virtually all zoning ordinances. Without plan developments, without this option, the plan development, the community will not be able to hear creative and beneficial ideas. We don't even get an opportunity to hear those ideas without plan developments. And there's no opportunity for public hearing to receive public input. The provisions provided for in the plan development language contain very, very tough provisions which have to be satisfied. And there are 7 key provisions, and 5 of those 7 have to be fulfilled in order for the plan development to go forward. The process is going to be months or years long and definitely includes neighbor and community input. So this is not something that's going to be sprung on the community. Importantly, the plan development needs approval, not just by the Planning Commission, but also by the City Council. So it's got a lot of checks and balances. The plan development must have a clear benefit to the overall community. And the plan development requires a detailed contract with the city. And that's important because Harbor Springs would have a legal recourse if things don't go well, don't go according to planning. A couple of other high focus topics. CBD maximum building heights. So our proposed ordinance sets a maximum building height of 35 feet in the central business district, no buts. That's 5 feet higher than the current maximum building height of 30 feet. And the reason we did that is that the maximum building height for residences in Harbor Springs is, what do you think? It's 35 feet, 35 feet. So the current code says that buildings in the CBD should be smaller than residences. It makes no sense. It really doesn't make any sense. So we've set 35 feet as the maximum building height in the central business district. We are allowing for an incremental 3.5 feet for equipment on top of the building, such as HVAC equipment, and so on. But that equipment cannot be visible from any street. So it will not be any visual clutter whatsoever. And we did not specify the number of stories that were permitted within that 35-foot maximum height. Went back and forth on that. One of the guys on the Planning Commission, who's an architect, says it can go either way. It can be 2 stories, it can be 3 stories. Let's let the architect decide what's best for that particular project. And that's what we decided to do. Agriculture. The community has a very soft spot for the AR zoning district up on the bluff. They want to retain that. And the Planning Commission agreed with that. We said we will retain that. For some reason, we decided we were going to call it residential agricultural, I guess, just to be different and to create controversy. But the fact still remains that that district exists, and it exists because it was a priority for the community. And you can definitely conduct farming operations by right in the agricultural district. So I'm almost to the end. A number of other improvements are implicit in the proposed ordinance relative to the current code. So I'll try and go through these quickly. Today, mobile homes are permitted in residential districts. In our ordinance and the proposed ordinance, they're not permitted. And that's not because we hate mobile homes, it's because the community said we don't want them. Shipping containers are today permitted for building materials for building new homes. That's no longer permitted in the proposed ordinance. Gas stations are permitted in the central business district. In the proposed ordinance, that is not permitted at all. The proposed ordinance introduces architectural standards for the downtown business buildings. The proposed ordinance now directs sexually oriented businesses to the industrial district rather than the central business district, which is obviously a far more appropriate place for businesses of that nature to be located. There's more flexibility now for front porch additions and renovations, which take up a lot of time on the zoning board of appeals. The zoning board of appeals spends a lot of time talking about porch additions and renovations, and they've added more flexibility as a result of that. And the proposed code now provides dark sky lighting standards for new developments. So, in the opinion of the Planning Commission at least, most of the deficiencies in the current code have been resolved, and we've been able to retain the spirit of the current code. So I won't go over every one of these. The format is better. Mobile homes are no longer permitted. Single unit detached dwellings are no longer permitted in the mobile home park. No shipping containers as a building material. Sexually oriented businesses out to the industrial area. Shoreline protection is implemented. Building heights limited to 35 feet. Architectural standards for downtown buildings have been implemented. New modern business types are permitted. All districts have the same approval process for ADUs. And up-to-date dark sky lighting standards would be implemented for new developments. So, in summary, the proposed updates remain, in my opinion, true to the ideals of the current code. This is important. This was important to us. We wanted to make sure that we were not changing the current code, and I genuinely do not think we are changing the current code. All we are doing is eliminating some of the problems with the current code that naturally happen over time. That code is 20 years old. And we're updating the format and making it easier to understand and use. In our opinion, the improvements are modest and they're quite balanced. The improvements protect the character and charm of the city of Harbor Springs, and it will not result in an increase in density. The proposed code resolves numerous issues and concerns that are implicit in the current zoning code. And I want to stress that many of the modifications and compromises that you see in the proposed ordinance were made with a lot of community input. We view the proposed ordinance to not be pro-development and not be pro-growth, no more so than the current plan. And the Planning Commission members believe that the updates clearly are beneficial for the community. So thank you for your patience, and I hope the council will support our efforts to push this across the finish line. Questions?
Could you explain the downtown building design?
The architectural standards?
Yes, thank you.
So Jeff and John, can you guys help me out with that? There are guidelines in the ordinance that say, here's what we're recommending on a vertical basis and on a horizontal basis, so that there's symmetry between the buildings. But if there's more that you want to add.
So another method of zoning is more like form-based zoning, where you start to care less about what the use of the building is and more about what the building looks like. And so we've started to implement just a little touch of that. We don't want to be too controlling, but we want to make sure that the style and design of the, when businesses downtown become remodeled, stays in character with the community. Under the old code, there really wasn't a lot in there to prevent somebody from remodeling a building and dramatically changing the face of it to something extremely modern or in a style that we're not used to seeing in Harbor Springs. And we've seen the community come to us a few times lately, requesting that we keep some of the character and charm of various styles of buildings. And so we included just a touch of architectural style and design in our approval process to make sure that the buildings look how we want them to look downtown.
Should kind of leave that up to the owner, I think.
I think what we've come up with is a really good middle ground. We don't get so detailed as to say it's gotta be blue, it's gotta be, this, but we do get into some things that we think would help the community. We think that it would probably be not a great idea if a business downtown got rid of their storefront completely, had no windows, no nothing, and just a door. That really detracts from the downtown community.
Your business would do that, wouldn't attract much business.
If a business is not relying on foot traffic, they might be very willing to do that. So I think one of the standards that we have is.
They'll all look the same.
One of the standards that we have is that I think the building needs a certain percentage of windows along the face. But again, we've started to add a little bit of that, but there's not a lot of it. It's not tremendously strong. It's not gonna completely take over the design of what a business wants to do. They'll just have to take that into consideration when they plan the remodel of the face of the building.
Town didn't evolve with all these restrictions. I don't really think we need downtown restrictions. If good people in town, they build nice buildings.
Any other comments or questions for me? Well, thank you for your patience. I know I was a little long-winded, but it's a big project. Thank you.
Think about it.
Thank you.
Obviously, you have the draft zoning code and there's a lot to process there, so you probably obviously need time to go through it. So at this point, if you'd like to schedule a public hearing for a future council date, you can make it a special date, or you can have it part of the regular meeting. We are setting up the regular schedule meeting for December 15th. So, sorry, but we're setting up the schedule for next year's council meetings December 15th, so you can decide to have a review at the December 15th meeting and then schedule a public hearing for a future date, or you can just schedule a public hearing right now at this part of the special meeting.
Has there already been a public hearing noticed
Yeah, we put out a notice, yes, but you don't have to,
for the date of December 15th?
we can cancel that. If you don't
Okay,
want to.
or we could have it.
Or you could. But I would just caution that, with the fact that we've gotten over it, just schedule a new date. Because we don't want to stall, we want to stall this on any potential technicalities, so. I would just recommend doing a different date other than December 15th.
What is, I'm being new to all of this, what do we have a lot with the budget and with looking at potential replacements, and how does December look, or how December, January, what are we looking at as far as meetings and what we're taking on if we?
So December 8th, we have a budget hearing and we are reviewing the applications for the proposals from,
Sorry.
We're reviewing the proposals for the executive search firms that would be part of the city manager selection process. So those are two things for December 8th. For December 15th, you will be approving the budget and the CIP based on any changes you make from your discussions at that public hearing, December 8th.
Okay.
So there will be a few other things on the agenda too. I mean, it's probably no different than we have typical years. Usually in December, we have more agenda items than some other months because we're trying to wrap a lot of things in the fiscal year. But I don't imagine it being any more lengthy than this meeting, for example.
Okay.
As far as number of items.
Just to clarify, the public hearing for the budget is
December
when?
8th, December 8th.
The 8th.
Yeah,
Now,
but we noticed that at the beginning of each calendar year.
that's what okay, I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yeah.
But we don't actually, and so then we vote on it on
Yes, we
December
vote on it
15th.
Right, and usually typically as past practice, because we have this meeting in the budget and then we have the public hearing. pretty much the changes that need to be made in a budget are pretty much all agreed on by the end of after the budget hearing, and then usually December 15th is usually a formality unless, there's something you guys see, but usually it's a formality of here, we made any changes to the proposed budget based on the public hearing. Here's the final form of the budget. And council usually votes on it that way.
Okay, the other item that we have to do, we do in December is boards and commissions appointments, correct?
Yeah.
And that's December 15th.
That's correct. And that can vary as how long it takes, depending on what kind of format council uses to make their appointments. So.
Sure.
We typically also don't meet the first Monday in January. We usually skip that first Monday, but I suspect that as part of the city manager recruitment process, you might have some special meetings to go over specifically the search process with whatever executive firm you use.
So what's the earliest date? So I understand the time commitments for a public hearing that we could have for the zoning.
I would say whatever is whatever you guys think is appropriate.
I understand, but what's the minimum time frame what's the earliest date?
If you want to schedule a meeting for sometime after December 15th, we would need 15 days to notice the individual who requested the public hearing. The Michigan Zoning Enabling Act doesn't require this type of public hearing to be noticed in the Harbor Light, as far as the newspaper.
It's
So
not, okay.
within that 15-day period, but we still would do it, it just doesn't really have to happen within that 15-day period, so.
So if we authorized a notice tomorrow, it could be done by December 17th, 18th?
I would
Okay.
advise against December 17th because we have a Harbor Commission meeting at 4.
No, I
I'm
understand.
just saying, you're throwing out that.
I get it. I understand.
I'm thinking that we should give the public the rest of the month off and tackle this in January. December 15th is 10 days before Christmas, and we can't even we'd have to do the 16th and 17th, and why don't we just take our time on this and put it in sometime in the first 2 weeks of January for the public hearing, and then we have time to deal with it after then too, because hopefully we'll have a lot of our major things off our calendar.
I would be happy to do it on January 5th, the first Monday of January. I think that in past we haven't met because it's so close to the holiday, but it's the 5th. And we have a lot going on, so I feel like we're gonna meet anyway.
Is there a motion? Schedule.
I would move to schedule a public hearing for January 5th.
I'll second.
Any particular time?
7 o'clock, like normal.
Okay. All right, so public hearing, January 5th, 7 PM. Motion in a second. Tom Graham,
Yes.
Kathy Macho,
Yes.
Jeannie Benjamin.
Yes.
Wendy Reeve
Yes.
and Jamie Melky.
Yes.
Motion carried.
If you still want the zoning code discussion on the December 15th agenda to talk about it or ask more questions, or you just want to just skip it for December 15th and just go straight to the public hearing on January 5th?
I think we should just go to January 5th.
So,
I think there's plenty. For you?
Yeah.
And I don't, yeah, no, I think that's fine.
all right, we can, I don't think there's anything else to discuss on that one, so we can move on to item 4. Okay, so item 4D is M119 sidewalk replacement bid selection. We talked about the previous year's capital improvements plan. Last year, or sorry, this year, we didn't do a major sidewalk project because we wanted to save up money to do a larger sidewalk project for 2026. And that project was, the sidewalk that was identified is what we call the Westfield sidewalk, which is the west side of M119, going up north of Third Street all the way to the new State Street construction. There is a, there was a map here. But it is the west side of, the sidewalk. So we went out to bid last month, and we had 5 bidders for the project. You see all the bids are there and the prices, and we also scored it between staff, city clerk, myself, and the DPW director, for our bid policy. And Cups Masonry came at the lowest price with the highest score. So for our policy, we recommend the company with the highest score. Now, all 3 of us felt comfortable with every single one of these bidders. So really, what it really came down to was a matter of who was the lowest price. You'll notice that in the Cups Masonry's bid that we attached was they have one price for both 5-inch thick and 7-inch thick sidewalk, because how they do it is they quote, they don't break it down, they quote the exact cost, what it'll cost them to do 5-inch thick and 7-inch thick. The other companies broke it down by unit for 5-inch thick and 7-inch thick. So Cup Spacer said ours is going to be this price of $69,000 for both. So that $69,000 figure applies to both 5-inch thick and 7-inch thick. And they also have nothing listed for adjusted manhole cover and adjusted water shut off, because that is included in their sidewalk repair. So I called them up to double check. I called John Cups to check to make sure that I was clear in reading it, that he would do all of that work for the price listed and not charge anything else. And that was what he said. So.
I'd sure like to see him extend across north side of Third Street on M119. I don't know if you may hear goes to Legion, but if you're a Legion having a drink, and truck goes up the hill, hits the sidewalk. It goes between the north side and the whole damn bus is. Maybe more level, but you drive up the hill, it's a real bump.
I'll have them take a look at it. As far as this bid, it's not included, but I saw the DPW look at a specific spot.
I think it needs to be done.
I'm sorry, I should be more familiar with this project, but is any portion of this affecting the storm drain or drainage? It's just the sidewalks. Okay.
So then the only difference between Cups bid and everybody else is that he's only allowing $2,000 for traffic control. And everybody else is allowed significantly more, up to $24,000.
Yeah,
I'm wondering, does he have slave labor, or how's he do that?
It's bigger than the other guy.
yeah, you know how these contractors come to their prices and where they feel like they can take money from and add money to is their secret sauce, I guess. I don't know how else to say it, but we expect the same, bare minimum necessary traffic control, and as long as they do what they have, what we have listed for them to do in the project specs for that price, that's what they're held accountable to. So we sign an agreement with them, and they're accountable to do everything that's required in the project.
What's the time frame in terms of how long it's going to take them to do the project?
We have it scheduled to be done by I think May.
I don't-
But,
I don't-
so
How many days?
I don't know exactly. So it's, I think there's flexibility in there on how long they can do it. They have to. They're gonna start whenever the weather permits it, right? The winter will last into April to, last longer, or shorter.
Mhm.
So then they have that much time frame from. How long will it actually take them? I imagine. it Wouldn't be more than a week, but
We anticipate the road being closed or down to one lane.
I don't think it's not with the sidewalk repair now.
I think it said that, that required it to stay open or something somewhere. On the picture, it says maintain two-way traffic with a maximum of 10 plus or minus 10 feet wide road closure. Look the picture.
She can read that
I
on her
know.
phone. I'm so
You can
impressed.
zoom in. You can zoom
In your eyes.
in.
For some reason, it's not appearing, so
Sounds like
explain,
45.
it's not displaying.
Page 45.
Yeah, it's out of order.
Okay. Yeah, in the wrong spot in the package.
Okay,
That's why. There you go.
okay. Well, of all the sidewalks in town, this is the one I'm glad we set up. Set aside money to do this, because I think this is an important sidewalk.
Sorry, that was out of order.
No, you're all good.
So, approving this contract, of course, would mean that you are putting this amount in the budget.
Mhm.
Any other comments? Are we ready for a motion?
How are they handling the curve at the bottom of that hill? I don't remember the sidewalk curving around like that.
I'm sorry, what, I didn't hear.
The curve at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah, I think that's where that street post is, or the
Yeah.
light post.
Yeah.
It goes around and has cement, I believe, and that's.
One of the pretty colors.
Is this above the amount that we would usually spend? I know we saved money from this year, but is it in line with what we would usually spend over the course of 2 years?
It's slightly over, we probably would have expected it with the millage over 2 years, about $75,000. Because we're probably about 37,000 now for that 10%. So. It's okay if we go slightly over, but because it's just, the 10% is the minimum we said we would spend on sidewalks. We aim to spend 10% of our millage funds on sidewalks. What you could always do is then spend not as much in 2027 and, spend, instead of spending 37,000, spend 30,000 or whatnot.
Well, there's no stipulation saying we can't spend more.
Right. Is the BDA doing any sidewalk repairs next year?
I know they discussed it, but Gail, I don't know if you have any specifics.
No specifics.
But it is in the budget. Yeah, some sidewalk.
Is any portion of this in the BDA?
I don't know if this, I believe it's west, I don't know if the west side sidewalk is there.
Maybe.
It might be, I don't know. I have to double check the DDA map. I don't know if it's
Technically not,
technically not.
because we stop at small stage, but that's where our post is, our three-colored post.
All in the eyes of the beholder, right?
Absolutely.
Well, move we select Hub's bid for the State Street sidewalk replacement.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Wendy Reeve,
Yes.
Tom Graham,
Yes.
Jeannie Benjamin,
Yes.
Kathy Macho,
Yes,
Jamie Milky.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, our next item is the 2026 budget introduction overview.
oh,
So this is just gonna be a very basic quick overview. You've had just a few days to look at the draft budget. The public hearing will have a more in-depth presentation with graphics, et cetera, but this is just a basic overview, so you get a general sense of some of the bigger issues, bigger costs, and outstanding questions that we need to be answered.
And if I may, just real quickly. Like Victor said, this is just, here you go. Have fun reading it, but just keep in mind over the next week, whatever, just call if you get questions or compile a list and we can sit down and hash them out.
All right, so our operating surplus for the general fund, the expectation is to be just under, the 2025 is to be $17,000, 550, so we're having a surplus this year. We originally expected a deficit of nearly $350,000, but that is not happening because we did not do the Kiwanis project yet. And we have $500,000 in our capital outlay money earmarked for the Kiwanis project. So that's why you're not seeing that deficit this year. Of course, we've also had this ice storm response, much of that was allocated for accounting purposes from the general fund, so that also brought what our surplus could have been down. We are anticipating it in the 2026 budget to be receiving that money. 2026, we are forecasting a deficit of $762,000, but that deficit is not an operating deficit. It is a planned capital improvements deficit. Again, $500,000 comes for the Kiwanis Park project, which is money received for donations. And that will happen probably likely in 2026 in the fall. Then we have $120,000 slated for the Blackbird Museum, which was again earmarked as an operating expenditure. We do have $55,000 for city beach bathrooms, $40,000 for Shea Park upgrades, audio visual improvements of $60,000, which is just an estimate, and then $500,000 for the eastern portion of the boardwalk. Notably, what we're not showing is we're showing an expenditure for the boardwalk of $500,000, but we're not showing any revenue coming in for it as far as donations. Going as conservative based on the way the fundraising has been happening, it's very slow. So we're just not, we're definitely not anticipating to have that much money in revenue and donations in 2026. So that is one of the key outliers here, is that and Nick did this kind of purposely so we could have a visual of how that impacts our budget. You know, we have $500,000 for this eastern boardwalk. Are we realistically going to get that money in from donations? And if not, you know, should we push it off until we do have money for donations, or should we not consider doing the project? So that's just, so that's something that sticks out because it's big, but you guys need to see it, that's what has been on the radar for the last few years, is to do this eastern portion of the boardwalk. Again, the Shea Park also is anticipated to have some donations. So what we're, again, really looking at is a deficit caused basically by our capital improvements that are planned. We have saved up plenty of money in our reserves fund balance, which the whole purpose of setting that up was for repairs and maintenance of existing infrastructure and existing grounds. So we have to spend that money, otherwise. We are saving this money up for capital expenditures for no purpose, so we need to make sure that we're using it for what we intended to do it. So that's essentially it. What I would also, for the general fund, like to point out that we are showing a transfer of $250,000 to the waterfront fund, to the harbor master project. Council will have to make that decision whether or not that is a gift, quote unquote, from the general fund to the waterfront fund for the public bathrooms portion of our harbor master building, or is it a loan over the course of the years? And that is a decision you need to make. It doesn't need to be made for the purposes of having a budget because it's showing $250,000 going into the waterfront fund. But if you plan on making it a loan, then we're gonna have to set up a payment plan for the waterfront fund to pay the general fund back over the course of the next several years. That's a high level overview of the general fund. Again, I mentioned that we're going to receive, I emailed the FEMA again today and they said our word is pending. So they've been saying that for a while, but it seems like just a lot of crossing T's and dotting I's, but you know, federal government moves slower than us, so surprise. What else we're looking at, again, some bigger differences you'll see is city manager salary. We left it as is for 2025, and that could increase or decrease based on how the search process goes, the cost of the search firm you use, the cost, salary of the new employee. So we're just putting it as the same as this year, but it will change probably. Most of the other things are self-explanatory in here, but I will show that we do have some areas like in brush and refuse pickup where we have a budget that's doubled, because for 2025, it says 2026, but I meant for it to say 2025, that our ice storm response costs of these line items doubled. And that you'll find that as well in our street funds.
Victor, can I ask a quick question about an item
I skipped.
well, you didn't skip, I'm just. Have you gotten all the bids or had on the audio visual project?
We have one coming this Wednesday. We have one
Okay.
bidding. We have one coming this Wednesday. We had one that backed out. They were gonna come from downstate about 3 weeks ago, but then they backed out. So I wanted to make sure we had at least two companies. I called another third company, a fourth company, and they haven't reached back out. So,
Okay.
but I'll at least have one more coming in this Wednesday. The one that's coming in Wednesday is one of the ones that installed part of this system. And then the one that we have already had is a completely different company that had nothing to do with these current systems, so.
Okay, thank you.
Skate park operations were slightly lower because we didn't spend as much money on staff. The beach operations, you'll review that more in the capital improvements plan, but that's related to the beach bathrooms infrastructure repair. Mentioned Bonds Park, mentioned Blackbird Museum, and I mentioned the waterfront transfer out. So that's an overview of the general fund. Major street fund, again, we have contractual services, 125 for 2025. That is the street portion of State Street construction project. Snow and ice control, again, that was hired because of the ice storm. Local street fund expenditures. I mentioned the sidewalk, we just approved the sidewalk bid. That's why it's at 85,000 compared to previous years. The $125,000 we saw for 2025 was Pine Street resurfacing project. Fire Authority, they set their own budget, but we can review because we're part of the Fire Authority. They do have a large capital outlay expense, and that's to replace the personal fire equipment. I think they're looking at a new engine, right? Is that the 300? Oh,
No, that is the air packs.
airbags, okay. That's what that is. The DDA, they're The revenues for 2025 were substantially less than budgeted due to the DDA not being to transfer that money from reserves for certain projects. They just didn't spend as money or do as many, spend as much money on those projects than they had anticipated. Wages are slightly going up, both through the DDA directors, cost of living, wages as well as wages for snow plowing. They're spending more money on marketing. They found it to be very productive, so they're going to use more money for social media as well as for the website. Some of the downtown projects include $120,000 for several different things, lamppost painting and flowers. As far as beautification, maintenance, including sidewalks, restrooms, wayfinding, lighting, benches, and trash cans. And then a consultant for the streetscape enhancement, as well as potential investigations into New York parking lot improvements. And that is because we discovered that the city technically does not own that parking lot yet, a public parking lot in New York. It's owned by the DDAs. So it happened sometime in the 80s or 90s that the DDA bought that property, and so it is now within their control, and they're gonna have to figure out how to manage it. Electric fund, again, you're seeing this revenue as bond proceeds of up to $8 million. We will know the exact amount as soon as we get all our bids in order for the construction substation. So when we have that bid come in for council, then we'll know what we're going out to bond for exactly.
Do you have any idea when we'll have those bids back?
I'm meeting with the electric engineers tomorrow, and Jim and I are, as well as so what happened with the electric company here is I found out why they've been delayed more than we anticipated to have this stuff wrapped up by November. They're losing their 2 main engineers to retirement and going somewhere else. So they're trying to transition this project to the state that the company that bought them over, which is Verdantis, bought over GRP, and they have engineers that they're getting familiar with this process. So that's why this is taking a little longer than anticipated. So.
Okay. I have another question on the bond. If I'm assuming we're gonna borrow the bond money sometime in 2026. When would a first payment be?
2027.
So it wouldn't be for a full year, okay, for a full year. Okay, because I didn't see anything about principal or interest, and I just wanted to make sure I understood that.
Yeah, we're not, I can't even guess at what these estimates are gonna be, so the $8 million is the max.
Right, no, I understand that, I just meant the first bond payment is like a year after the,
That's what I'm planning, yes.
okay,
27,
thank
and
you,
for the next 20 years after that.
right, okay, thanks. Sorry.
Any other questions, ma'am? Anybody?
Water sewer fund, just again, going through this is, the well maintenance and reservoir, you see $25,000 in 2026, that is for a SCADA monitoring system. Waterfront revenues, we're showing a revenue of that $250,000 from the general fund. Again, that is that transfer to the general fund for the passing portion of the building project.
That was a question that maybe we could talk about more, Nick, was in terms of the timing of that 250. But we can talk about that next time.
We show the cost of the Harbor Master Building as a capital outlay item split evenly between 25 and 2026. We still have another, a month of potentially receiving bills for that project. And so it will be readjusted though next year based on the actual costs of the bills and orders that we have. So.
Sorry, I looked at that tonight and I can't remember. You paid $163,000 tonight
I want to say
on
that
that project, but I don't remember.
probably the last one, I know that the general contractor likes to get caught up with billing before the end of the year so that they can pay their stubs before Christmas. I get it. But looking from what I can see what we've paid and what we still have to pay, we're gonna be right around 500,000 before year end. Lead me to believe $500,000 by March.
Okay. Thanks.
But we can amend that as needed. when we do next year's.
We have
Thanks.
high end of 1.2 million split between 2 years. The reason for that is the project was awarded for $1 million. There was a 10% contingencies, and then there's architect fees, which most have already been paid for, but
Okay.
so that's why we split. So we're at the high end of what it potentially costs. Again, we're looking at probably about 1.1 million total with architect fees and contingencies. And so far, contingencies have been a few. I think so far it's about 2.5% of the total project cost. Just unforeseen circumstances, concrete being thicker than expected and other things. So, yeah, so far it's going pretty well, project. And then again, equipment fund, this is one of those ones, we'll talk more in the capital improvements project. But we do have some purchases of vehicles, including police vehicle, plow truck, water service vehicle, and a BBW tractor, so. That is just a nutshell overview of the budget. Please go through it line by line and ask all your questions today.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
And Kyle.
don't worry. There was one item that, just because it's a big item, I wanted to bring it up now. At some point, we discussed not transferring the $240,000 or $50,000 from the electric fund to the general fund, but I noticed we budgeted that for next year. I was thinking we were taking that out.
That'll be a conversation, something that would
Okay,
you tell me, yes, no, indifferent, half, 30%, nothing.
Yeah, it was something that we did discuss, but was not firmly set on, agreed to. at council level. So council will need it. And we can bring back, and they can definitely look at, the pros and cons of doing that, what it means for the electric fund versus what it means for the general fund.
well, and that's where I'm most concerned because of the electric fund and where we're gonna be. Because we don't have, do we have the rate study yet
Not yet.
for the electric fund? When do we expect that?
Probably truthfully now, everything else is going on probably January.
Thanks.
But it doesn't, we've historically set rates effective January 1st. I mean, we can still have a meeting and set rates effective February 1st. I budgeted the electric fund 3.5% increase for 26.
And so one of the, I'll say good things is that if we don't get the bond proceeds in 2026, our first payment's not till 2027, so that rate schedule increase is not as urgent for 2026 because we're not making the payments yet for the bond. So you see how that makes sense?
But, okay, I may not,
I know you, but you see what I'm saying, like, so.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm not.
So they're going to give us a rate schedule based on when we have to start making the bond. Right,
Oh,
but so
okay.
you can make it, they will give us a rate schedule based on that.
Yes, and when they give us a rate schedule, I mean, me personally would rather implement that sooner than later.
Yeah.
I
So
agree.
that I can start having that money build up to make that first bond payment. That's what I would prefer, but we can go from there when I get it back from them.
Okay, I know I'll have more questions, but not.
No, yeah, just shoot me email or
I've already sent him 2 emails.
we can hammer them all out. You can come in individually and we can sit down for however long you want. Ready? 3. 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be with Kyle.
Hopefully having more fun.
We had fun. We didn't talk about the budget. Talk about it.
Okay.
So again, no motion, no action needed tonight. The budget hearing has already been scheduled at the beginning of January, when we set our regular meeting schedule, the second Monday, December is always the vote for a budget. It's a regular meeting, but budget hearing, typically we only have a budget hearing, but this year we added the executive search consultant selection to that, so. All right. Last but not least, this goes hand in hand with the budget is a capital improvements plan, the 2026 to 2030 capital improvements plan. The Michigan Planning and Enabling Act requires the city to spend over 6-year CIP. So the presentation included an overview of that 26-2031 CIP. The Planning Commission did approve the CIP and recommended council approve it. There were some recommendations that the Planning Commission members made. Some they agreed to unanimously, others were just from individual members, but those 4 recommendations were, one is that ensuring that the parks projects in the CIP are aligned with the parks projects in the Parks Master Plan. Investigating the complete reconstruction of roads instead of just paving, resurfacing roads. Specifically, Center Street was brought up because after the school construction project, there seems to be more drainage issues. So we have patchwork, so seal and fog plan for the Center Street, some other streets in the 2026 budget. But the one planning commissioner point out that that's not going to fix the root issue that's real deeper than that. So another one was in 2027, prioritizing the Marine Patrol boat over the line bucket truck. They're both aging. The Marine Patrol is aging and failing. The bucket truck is just aging, and it's the 20-year-old truck it'll be, and it's having more and more repair work into it. But the planning commission just had more emphasis on the Marine Patrol boat if we have to choose one. And the reason that is because, as you'll see, they're both $300,000 purchases, and we just won't have the money in 2027 to make those 2 big purchases. And I'll talk about that some more, but that is primarily because our first Marine Patrol boat our current Marine Patrol boat was donated to the city, so we never had revenue coming in to the equipment fund to save up for the purchase of a Marine Patrol boat. That's essentially.
I didn't know until a couple years ago, we even had a Marine Patrol boat.
Because it wasn't on the books.
Right.
And finally, speaking of that, there is a desire to see in the future appreciate our depreciation schedules for all vehicles in the capital improvements plan, just to see that, so we know what the depreciation schedule is for potentially upcoming vehicle purchases. Again, I'll go over the presentation, but no actions recommended or required today. This is just an overview. And discuss it along with the budget hearing. We'll add CIP discussion, and then again on December 15th. And as a reminder, what you do approve the CIP, you are not approving these actual purchases. You're just approving this as a plan go forward. So our 6-year plan is a capital plan for projects and purchases over $10,000. It includes both projects we deem as necessary, and those projects, and I started doing so this. And projects that are desirable or have been noted by board and commissioner staff that could be done. Again, it does not commit the city to spending any of the money or to completing this projects in a specific year. It's really just a planning tool, a planning document. It is a requirement by the Michigan Planning and Enabling Act. It must be approved both by the Planning Commission and Council. It allows the city to plan for future projects, is a good timeline, sets a timeline, and it also opens us up to grants. If you have a capital improvements plan and you have the projects listed in those in the plan. Our process this year, September and October, the department heads submit the projects to the city manager. Those projects include the cost, timeline, etc. City manager compiles that information, distributes to the policy team, which is really a scoring team. They score the projects based on certain criteria. And then by November, I compile all those scores and draft the draft CIP. In November, the planning commission reviews and approves, and in December, the council reviews and approves. With any changes, they recommend the changes, of course. This 2026 to 2031, we have 73 projects for the 6 years period, total cost of just over $19 million. Average cost per project is $264,000, almost $265,000. This is slightly misleading in the sense it's average, it's not a median cost. This average is so high because we have the substation project at several $1 million. So taking that out of the equation, it's your average project is going to be $260,000. If we have it that for 9 projects, we would like to see grants or donations to help pay for those projects, mostly works projects. Electric fund, that constitutes over half of the anticipated spending in the next 6 years. Again, due to the substation and transmission line project. Just a reminder that this CIP does not take into consideration small scale purchases and general maintenance. So our capital improvements project is geared toward large purchases, and we consider large purchases in our purchase policy of anything over $10,000. So just keep in mind, when we have capital purchases such as for computers or a bench or a table, that's not like this. So here's some stats, just shows you where the projects are coming from, which fund they're coming from. And again, as you see, most of them are coming from the electric fund. We have several projects, general fund, streets fund, and equipment fund. And obviously the equipment fund, the projects are really purchases of vehicles or equipment that we need. Waterfront fund, DDA, don't have as many projects at this level. And water sewer has a few. And you see more projects in this chart than there actually are projects in the plan, is because some projects, their costs are split between different funds. So when we redo a water or sewer main, well, you have to dig up the road. So we allocate the reconstruction of the road to the streets fund, and then the water pipe portion to the water fund. So that's just an example why you might have some projects split between different funds. This is just another visual. You see that about $10 million coming from the electric fund, as far as spending of this $19 million for the 26 to 2031 capital year, years. General fund and water and sewer fund and equipment have slightly over $2 million. Waterfront and DDA are quite small. Just get another visual so you see where we're at from a pie chart perspective. Again, half the money coming from the electric fund. Cost per year, 2026 is the highest anticipated. Again, this is because of the substation and transmission line. Take about $6.5 million off of that. You're down to about $3 million, which is in line with 2027 spend. As we get closer, so it's harder to forecast exactly what projects we're doing. Once we get closer to the next coming up fiscal year, we know exactly what projects are in line, so we have an idea exactly of what costs are there. You're going out to 2030 and 2031. We don't know if we'll do those projects those years or later, or they'll be pushed up. We don't know, but so those aren't as reliable. But the closer you are, 26, 27, those are more likely to be within the range of spending we need in those years. And I'm not going to go through in detail, but you see this in your presentation, in your packet. One of the goals of the planning commission is to ensure that the projects that we have in our CIP are aligned with our master plan goals. So what I've done is I've just gone through each of the projects and showed which goals of the master plan they fall under. As you can see, the parks projects falls under the parks parts of it. You have complete streets or streets projects go under and streets and sidewalks and paths projects go under that goal 11 of implementing complete streets program. Then we also have goals 13 and 14 are really about delivering the services from utilities to everyday services, from policing, et cetera, to the community. And that's where most of our projects fall under, is the delivery of those public services.
I had just one question. What is the Nelson to Hoyt water project?
So Nelson.
N119 Nelson.
Oh,
to
wow.
Hoyt.
So yeah. N119 Nelson is this first street on the right when you go down the hill.
Yeah,
So from there on M119 all the way to Hoyt intersection.
so this is like a major maintenance replace.
This would be for the pipe, the water and the sewer, and then I think,
Are these some more of our 50 and 70-year-old
yes.
infrastructure? Okay,
I can get you to the actual description of the project.
sorry,
No, it's okay. It's in all this extra material that you probably haven't read in detail, but it's replacing the water main curb and road
gotcha,
along with
okay.
sanitary sewer from Nelsonville.
Oh, it's water and sewer, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So that is to CIP in a nutshell. I think, if you have questions right now, but we can get into more specifics. Now we're at the public hearing. Being December 8th and on December 15th.
Are there any other anticipated projects that need to be done from the waterfront fund?
At this time, no. One project on there that we're not sure about is Ford Park. There's been a lot of talk between the Harbor Commission. There's been some talk between the Harbor Commission as well as the Parks Board about reconfiguring Ford Park and the space at Ford Park, but nothing's been concretely established there. So it's kind of earmarked in here, but if a project needs to come up when it's related to like the docks or something, then that will get on this CIP, but there's nothing anticipated right now.
Okay. And then does the DDA submit CIP projects?
Yes, but this year they discussed their budget well after I had prepared this CIP, so I haven't got anything from them as far as future years beyond next year. So I don't know if they discuss, Gail, your hair, I don't want to talk on your behalf.
Oh,
I don't know. I don't think they've discussed, projects for beyond 2026.
I mean, they have a plan, so I guess I would like to see them participate in this process more fully in the future. Just because I do think that because a lot of it is the city's infrastructure, if there are priorities that staff sees, I think that those should be prioritized, because if they fail, then the city's going to be responsible for them. And some of the projects that they are doing are maybe lesser of a priority. So I would just like to see them participate in this process. And then also, if they could come to us maybe as part of the public hearing and give us a little bit more detail about what their budget is, that would be awesome.
And Becky is on Zoom if you want to ask questions right now, but if you'd rather have it at the public hearing.
Now I'd rather have a presentation, I think.
Okay. Well, Becky can do that. Well, yeah. I won't say Becky can do that, but she said, I discussed this with Becky and she said she's more willing to come. Tonight, she was just worried about the weather and traveling back and forth.
It's a complete whiteout over your house, Nancy, or Mark sleeping.
Yeah.
Victor, the airport authority, West Traverse Township is pulled out of the Harbor Springs Airport. Is there going to be any difference in price now with one less participant?
Yes, right, but
Possibly, yes.
we don't know that
Minimal.
cost.
The split up, it would be Pleasant View, Little Traverse, Bear Creek, and the Petoskey and City would split up $6,000, I think, give or take. So very minimal at this point.
Any other questions at this time? I did not have it was a short week last week, so I did not have a full city manager's report. I do have a couple of items to just bring your attention. One is back in summer of 2024, the city council had directed the tree board and staff to work on a vegetation management plan for city property. Our current policy is that residents can have a process to request to trim trees on city property. And at that time, council said it'd be better for the city to take responsibility of just managing vegetation on the property, stop with the private request and just deal with the public. We create a plan and then the city takes that plan over and implements it. However, we did get an application to do a vegetation management request a couple months ago, and when I went back to look at the minutes, I just want to get clarification from council that not all of you were there. It's good for me to ask you, since new council members, I didn't see anywhere saying that the current policy is not in place. So I'm going to operate under this assumption that our current policy is still in place until the tree board and staff presents to the city council a plan that you approve. So then I can tell this individual that we can move forward with the request that he made and start processing that request, because it wasn't clear in the minutes that it was clear to direct staff and the tree board to work on this, but it wasn't clear whether or not that policy had been revoked. So I'm operating under the assumption that it's still in place until you have put something new.
When the tree board discussed that last meeting.
Yeah.
I know they're still working on.
They're still working.
They're still working on the policy.
Yeah.
So I can't think of any reason that we wouldn't operate under the old one.
I just want to make sure before we go through this request. So if you guys seem like okay with that as a council, then I'll just begin processing this request and I can teach Kyle all about it.
Thank you.
All right. The second is our Parks Director, Rachel Roon, has given in her notice. Her last day with the city will be December 15th. So on that going forward. So that is all I have, unless you have any questions.
I have a question. I don't know if it's appropriate timing. When we do the appointing to the different, how does that work? You said something about whatever way we want to do it. Is there a policy in place on how it's done, or?
So there's a policy in place for who has to make the appointments. The different boards have different, some of them, the mayor makes appointments, some of the council makes appointment. But in previous years, it has been, someone nominates someone and then you all vote on that person. If it fails, you vote on the next person. Then sometimes we have, council has said, let's just make a list of our top few candidates and see who's the same names that appear the most on those lists to make it more efficient for the point of those
It's up to
candidates.
council,
So
isn't it?
it's really up to council.
Decide how we want to do it.
And that's something we should probably have in place before that meeting, right? Is that something we?
I think that would be a great idea.
Yep.
Myself.
The code will specify for what council or commission, who nominates what, whether it's the mayor or the council,
They all have to be
voted on by you.
They all have to be voted on, however,
Okay.
and how we choose, depending on how many candidates there are, is really up to the council. So I agree, we should think about some kind of a process. Next time, can we put that on the agenda, Tom?
Sure. For December 8th.
Yeah.
All right, so yep, that's what I have. I do want to say, I do want to thank Rachel for the 4 years she's been here. She's done a lot of work for the city, did a lot of good projects. We're gonna miss her. And hopefully, we're all rooting for Lucas too. When we hear more information about, what his status will be going forward, we'll let you know. So I'll have some more conversations with him. We'll bring back updates. Any questions?
Any questions in the audience, you might, talk about or mention?
No.
Well, it should be adjourned then.
I got,
Oh, yeah, Kyle.
Excuse me.
Old
No,
business.
just I don't know, you have boards of commission, yes, is that, do we have anything on that?
No.
Okay, one thing that I thought of,
Sorry, never mind. We
Don't
didn't
we,
go over your board. I thought you meant appointments.
Yeah.
So we have boards and commissions. Yes.
I actually went to a meeting. So, the tree board met, November 21st, and, no decisions were made, but we did go through the tree and vegetation management policy. That is on for trees, vegetation located on city property, not any other property. And so we're in the process of reviewing that, and we'll get that finished soon. We'll have a tree canopy. We're working on another tree canopy article. And we discussed a couple of other items that we'll put on the next agenda, but no decisions were made. Oh, and just to comment, the trees that came down at the Shea House were interfering with the electric lines. So that's why those were taken down, and that was brought up during the meeting. So I thought I should bring that up since it's come up here.
one thing I had was, some people approached me reference in the school switch, the meeting times for the winter. Like, I look at our meetings and we're having a lot of good public input. In our meetings, when I started up here 8 years ago, our meetings would last an hour. And now they're lasting 2 to 3 hours. And we have our meeting schedule coming up in December 15th, where we do it. And I don't care either way. I'm just gonna possibly starting our winter meetings from November to April at 6 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock. That way it gets dark at 5:30. That way none of us are getting any younger. And I know at one of the meetings, especially me, at one of the meetings it was brought up to try to make our meeting schedule more consistent. I know that would make it inconsistent with summer or the winter, but I just thrown that out there. I think that getting done at 9:30, we're all gotta drive home tonight. And in the winter, it might be beneficial, but it doesn't matter to me either way, but it might be beneficial to start them at 6 o'clock. The school did it not too long ago, and it's not been an issue at all. I would only recommend it for the winter, and not for the summer, because a lot of us have things going in the summer. That 7 o'clock's more adequate, but it's totally up to you guys. You can talk amongst yourself, and it doesn't matter to me at all.
Next time. Sure.
But I think we need to make a decision before we do the meeting schedule for 2026 at the December 15th meeting. So you guys talk about it.
Yeah, no, that's, so December 15th, we'll have a schedule, and then if you want to change the time from 7 to 6 PM for those meetings, we'll do that. We can have a more in-depth discussion. There's pros and cons, as Chief has said. One of them that I had heard before was 6 PM is dinner time, 5 to 6, so people, there's always a reason for why one time, daytime, people are at work, nighttime, it's not good sometimes because they last late and people are tired. So it's really about what you want, you want as a council. It's your schedule, it's your meeting.
It reminds me, you need to fix the city schedule. The tree board changed its meeting time till 8:30 on Fridays.
It was just for that one Friday, was
That's because that's the end of the year, but I think we're gonna, my understanding was we were doing it that way for the going forward. So.
okay.
But
I'm looking at it.
okay. And so Victor and I spent 2 to 3 hours this morning going over stuff, and he's getting me up to speed, and we'll spend at least an hour or two every day to try to get me where I need to be. So I don't have the skills, but I'll do my best. So I appreciate you guys having the confidence for me to do this.
We'll be patient with you, Kyle.
I appreciate it.
I think we also need to put on the agenda for the next meeting, how we're going to pay Kyle. We haven't talked about his salary. We're not expecting him to work for free.
I think he volunteered.
Whatever you want, I'll do it. I'm happy to do it.
Do that, he starts December 16th.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Else?
I think we're about there. My audience guy, but any comments? Karen, you had your hand up earlier.
No, good, thank you.
Let's be adjourned then.
Right.